My name is Monica Gleiberman, and you're listening to Silence on Set podcast. On today's podcast, we have Reid Scott, who's in a new film called Who Invited Charlie? The film follows a New York City family hiding out in the Hamptons whose bubble is popped when a Bloody Mary drinking, pot smoking friend, Charlie, comes to bring a lifetime of hurt that might actually just heal them all. So to talk about the film, here's Reid Scott. I kind of want to just get started really quickly at the very beginning. How
Yeah.
did you get involved in the project because it's such an indie film?
Yeah. Blackmail, kidnapping, all of the above. The writer, Nick Scott, is one of my oldest and dearest friends, and he and I work together on stuff all the time. Um, he came to me with this idea pretty fully cooked, actually. This was largely his experience during lockdown. He stayed, and I guess he would have been kind of the Charlie of his real life experience, although his wife and kids might not like hearing that. But he lived with another family that they were close with, and he said it brought forth all of these themes that he wanted to explore. And he turned out the script in like 2 weeks or something, like kind of like record time. He had really just because it was so just sort of prevalent to him. And he called me and asked me to read it, and I immediately loved it. And in the early stages, he wanted me to play Charlie. And I was like, I love it. I would love to stretch that way. But I think there's someone out there who is just perfect for it. And I don't know if that's me. And I'm like, but the Phil character, obviously, like I got a handle on Phil because he is, not too dissimilar from Dan and some of the other characters I played in the past. And I said, so look, like why don't we attach me as Phil and let's go find everybody else because I love this script and I want to help you. So I came on as a producer very early on, and we actually didn't have to look very hard. We sort of like Adam came to the top of the list pretty quickly. Adam Pally, and Adam and I had done a movie together years ago called Slow Learners.
I love that movie.
Oh, good. Thank you. All right,
I
great.
love
Wow,
that
you
movie.
really you've dug into the Reid Scott oeuvre.
Oh, I went deep, and yeah, and I've been a huge fan of Adam Paley for a long time, so I've watched all of his stuff too, but I've seen literally everything you've been in. So the two
Yeah.
of you were fantastic, so I was so excited you guys were reuniting for this one.
Oh, so were we. It was great. Like he and I, we got to be really good buddies on Slow Learners, and we just. I like to think that I can get along with anybody that I work with, but there was something about Adam. He and I, we have very similar kind of upbringings and with very similar sensibilities, similar senses of humor, even though we sort of can come at the same joke from two different ways. And we just really complement each other. So when we called Adam, he was like, yeah, I'm in. And he loved the character. And instantly, we just all sort of got what we were trying to do here. Like, this is very much an homage to the movies that Nick and Javi, our director, who did a phenomenal job, and Adam and myself grew up on. What about Bob? Uncle Buck, planes, trains, automobiles. Like it's all in there. And this was our sort of like, hey, like, yeah, this is a pretty good way to spend our winter out in the freezing cold tip of Long Island, like, taking our shot. And we had a great time. We really did. I was also overwhelmed by the whole our Hamptons Film Festival weekend was so much fun, and getting to screen it for sort of the hometown crowd. It
Yeah.
was great. It was such a warm reception. It was really cool.
It was such a good reception, and there were so many people. I felt like you guys were all being pulled,
Yeah.
like for person, 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 because so many people were so excited. After the screening, like I'm kind of jumping ahead because I'll go back to the film, but after the screening, I people were coming out literally going like, "That's one of the best movies I've seen," and I was like,
Oh,
"No," I was like, That's why I want to talk to them because it was so good." Because there's so many great elements in it.
yeah,
But
I think so too. The whole movie came together relatively easy, I guess, in the grand scheme of things. Yet even so, it's like it's indie filmmaking is I love it. It's my favorite way to work. I love all aspects of filmmaking. I love knowing each of the department heads. I love learning from each of the artists that are on set. That's what really sort of like that's kind of why I do this. So indie filmmaking is is the best way to sort of get that kind of education. And even so, it's sort of like it's hard to just get a quote unquote good movie made. Everything has to have some giant hook. And that's the thing about this movie is like there's no hook. It's just it's just funny and it's just got a lot of heart and it's just a really nice slice of life. And so far, yeah, people have been coming away with the movie like feeling how we wanted everyone to feel. The way we felt when we saw the movies that inspired us. Like I said, like Uncle Buck and Planes,
Yeah.
Trains, and Automobiles. Yeah.
So you sign on, and then I guess Adam's the next one that gets casted.
I guess in order, maybe Jordana came on next, and actually
Okay.
Jordana and Nick grew up together. So
Oh
this
my
was like very much a
gosh.
family affair.
Yeah,
We
I
were
was
all
gonna
like
say
one
everyone knows
degree of
everyone.
yeah, like one degree of separation from each other, which is really cool. And Jordana's just awesome. Like
Mhm.
she's so great. Most people know her from Fast and Furious,
Mhm.
but she's a lovely, lovely person. And on top of that, she's really funny. Like she in order of like hilarity, it would definitely go Adam, and then probably myself, and then Jordana. But man, Jordana can run. Like she gets the jokes, and she had a blast. I think, and I'm really excited for people to see her sort of step outside of that action
Yeah.
box. She can do anything. She was just great.
Yeah, it was kind of like a weird degree because then also you had another Mindy project
Hmm.
character because you also
Hmm.
had the neighbor. Because
Yeah,
I was like, I don't know if anyone else like noticed that, but I'm assuming I don't know if Adam reached out or if you guys reached out um
I think
to
Adam did.
oh, did he reach out? Okay. Because I was
Sure.
like, everyone like knows everyone.
Yeah,
So
I worked with Zosha like 1,000 years ago. I was on a show called My Boys, and she did an episode of My Boys where we like went on a date, and it's like it really was. Everyone did know each other. It was kind of cool.
that's so cool.
Yeah.
And so, all right, so you guys all get cast. You're going to start this movie. It's freezing. I think you guys started like when it started getting cold here.
I left to start the movie the day after Thanksgiving last year,
Yeah,
and we
so it's
started in
cold.
Manhattan. We were in Manhattan for maybe a week, and then out to Montauk and Wayne Scott for the last 3 weeks.
And then I heard, so is this true? The house that you guys filmed in, real house, was
Mhm.
owned by real people. They let you guys use it. And they also, I think during some of the Hampton stuff, even let some people stay there. They let crew stay there. So this is a very huge family oriented
Oh
film.
yeah.
That's all true.
This little neighborhood, which is just like the most stunningly beautiful place you've ever seen, in Wayne Scott, New York, out in the tip of Long Island, sort of nestled between East Hampton and Bridgehampton, essentially. Nick Scott grew up going out there with his parents in the summertime, and that's how he knows Jordana because their families were friendly. So they go way back to like junior high together, and they
Wow.
were friends with Maggie, who owns and lives in the house that we shot at. She's an old friend. So they were literally reliving their youth. And yeah, we had, there was crew sleeping on the floor, which I don't know, is probably going to get us in trouble with some union someplace. Um, and then actually, even our rap party, Maggie's parents, we threw our own like little sort of like tight knit rap party back at that house because it was still in the family, and it was so sweet. Maggie's parents came out, and like it looked like Christmas. Like they'd put like little cookies and little things out there. It's really fun to watch, a mom and dad who aren't really in the industry at all put on a rap party for this like very ragtag group of indie filmmakers. It was great.
See, like I love all of that because you hear indie films and sometimes people will talk about, and I'm not saying that there's not struggles. Obviously, I'm sure you guys went through your fair share of stuff, but it's so nice to hear all of those cute kind of like, oh, this is a coincidence, or this person knew this person, and we ended up in this great house and these great people, and to hear all of that makes it so exciting for people that want to get into the industry that are starting out in indie films that's like where their base is, that's where they're living, to hear that all of this kind of family is like possible.
The relationships you make, not only personally but also professionally, starting at the very beginning, like if you make real solid relationships, they come through for you, like, and this was all very legitimate. Like, like I said, Nick's one of my oldest friends, and Adam and I have been dying to work together. And, those things, that's how indie filmmaking comes together. It's very much a family affair, it's your mercenaries. So you have to really you have each other's back because no one else does. And there we were up against it. We got shut. We had a COVID shutdown at one point.
Mm.
We did not have the budget to take those days, but we had to take those days and sort of reinvent. All right, how do we get these shots on the back end now that we're a couple days behind? What do we do? But it never fails to amaze me that those are the moments where artists create solutions to problems that inevitably make the project better somehow. And it just lifts your spirits. At first it's like, oh my God, how many more hurdles do we have to jump over? But then it's like, oh wow, like we're going to crack this nut. We got this figured out. And then it's
Yeah.
just that feeling of pride. It felt like we pulled one off. It really did.
I'm sure it's like panic, but then once it happens, you're like, oh my God, like we just did that. Like we made it work. We figured it out. We found the table, we found the chair, like whatever you guys had to like grab, like, and just make it work, which I feel like is the magic of movies. And you lose that, I think, sometimes when it's the blockbuster and the big film, you lose that kind of like intimacy. And so that's why I'm a huge like indie fan because of that. But to get into the movie, so
Sure.
first of all, I want to ask you, how would you describe or tell someone what the movie's about?
It's basically it's the story of a family that's on kind of the brink of collapse, really,
Mm.
who takes refuge in their summer home during the pandemic and are thrown together with an old friend from my past who does not fit in this world but ends up through his own just sort of weird way of looking at the world bringing us closer together as a family.
I agree. The movie's so sweet. And when you see the trailer initially, I think you think, which is good, you think that it's going to be like this annoying guy that moves into this house that's not wanted. And you picture like the typical stereotypes, right? Of like, we're just going to keep kicking him out and trying to get rid of this guy. And that's what you think's going to happen, which is not what happens. This movie is so different. Although this family does not want him, and poor Phil. I mean, Phil, like has some issues, but Phil does not, I don't think, want to deal with Charlie. But there's none of that typical like stereotype stuff. They're not trying to kick him out every 2 minutes and arguing with him. It's more just Phil, and I feel like, and you can correct me, you're playing him. Um, Phil's like in the middle of a crisis emotionally in his relationship in terms of what he's been up to and things that he's been doing. And Charlie comes in and is a little kooky and funny and quirky and kind of pushes him in all the right ways. Feels a little like, I think there's one line that Charlie says, like something along the lines of, feels a little like uptight and very like stuck together. And Charlie's kind of the complete opposite. You guys are like yin and yang, but together somehow you kind of like make a full coin, I guess. I don't know, like something together with you guys.
Yeah, we discover what made us friends in the first place. I think he's describing Charlie describes Phil to Phil's son, and he says it. Oh yeah, back in college, he was so uptight. He would fart and the lights would go out.
Yeah. For you, what was it like for Phil when you read him? You did it in such a great way because he could come off as a character that's very not likable. Like if you read him on the page and what, cheating and like various things that come up, the money stuff that he's hiding, the hustling, the I don't want to give too much away, but the connection that he has with Charlie and what happened there, like the various things that come up. If you read it on paper, not the nicest guy.
Yeah,
But when you play him, he doesn't come off as a cold-hearted person. You care about him. So as an actor, when you read a script like this, is there a certain way that you prepare to make sure that you're walking that line of in between not being hated and like being
yeah,
loved? Is there like a line that you have to do? And then how do you do that?
yeah. No, that's a great question. I get sent those kind of characters a lot, so I always try to look. And some times it's not the right fit, but I look for characters that even if they have all of those faults that you just mentioned, there's something about it that you can see how they got there. Maybe it was a series of missteps, bad judgment on their part, letting, they get the better of themselves. They let greed get in the way. They get, let hubris get in the way or ego get in the way. And because that's kind of what we're all doing on this planet. It's like we're making decisions on a moment to moment basis. And, every once in a while, you take yourself too far in one direction. You got to sort of work your way back. And that's where we find Phil. I feel like
Right.
time has gotten away from him. he's, been a victim of the pressure that he's put on himself to succeed, to sort of be perfect, to win in
Mhm.
the game of life. And now he's waking up and it's like, shit, in all my effort to win, I'm about to lose everything. I
Right.
love sports analogies. So to me, it's sort of like, it's like
That
that
works.
head coach, like, goddamn, like he's so white knuckling the season. It's like, we're going to win. We're going to win. It's like you're losing what was beautiful about the game. And that's what Phil's
Right, right.
lost. What's been beautiful about his wife, his kid, his life, like this incredible life that they built.
Mhm.
So if I can see that the character has those elements and there's opportunities in the script to illuminate those, then I know sort of like, okay, there's something for me to do here. And then it's about, sort of flavoring those moments where, you might be able to say, oh wow, he's just being an asshole right now. It's like, yeah, but what's underneath it? Where is it coming from? Why does this moment bring this out of him? Because he's I don't think anybody, any real person, they're not just like a, mustache twirling, you know super villain all
Right.
the time. There's got to be something underneath it. And that's what's fun, and especially in the format of comedy, because man, you could just sort of play and invent it. Where does this come from? And like, what stupid little, nugget way down deep has led him to this? And the same goes for Adam's character, because Adam's character is like, he's way out there. It's like, well, how did he get there? And that's what we're all unpacking. It's kind of fun that we sort of like, we got to work these characters in reverse a little bit. You
Oh,
see what
for
they're
sure,
now.
yeah.
You keep peeling these layers and peeling these layers, and it's like, oh, finally by the end, it's like, there you are, Charlie.
Mhm.
Now I see who you are, Phil. That's the guy you want to be. You know, Jordana's character, same thing. It's sort of like, oh, like you want more than what you've let yourself have. And our son too. It's sort of like he's a lot braver than he thought he was. So yeah, it's tough. Like you can't really sit down with like a pen and pencil necessarily and sort of plot it. But
Right.
sort of when we get to this scene, let's play. And that's what Hobby and Nick really let us do, is we got to play a lot. And Adam and I love to improvise together. So a lot of times we would take a scene, and the scene might work really well on paper, and then you get it on its feet, and it's like, it's just missing something. Like, how do we dig a little deeper? Well, let's just improvise the whole scene and see what happens, and let's shoot it. Just how do we get from A to Z? And 9 times out of 10, you find something really, really cool that just like turns up the dial a little bit on those moments, and cracks open the character a little bit for you. So it's also tough for the movie, because you're finding the character kind of as you go. You got 4 weeks to figure this guy out. Like, you hope to come with it ready to go, and then when you get there and on feet, it's like, oh, this feels different. Phil and Rosie, now that we're here face to face, I want to talk to you differently than I did when we were doing it, on Zoom rehearsal,
Yeah.
or whatever it was. It's like, is it softer? Is it funnier? Is like, what is it?
I wanna bring up a couple things really quickly. So for Jordana, I wanted to mention, because I know you said she was so funny and you're a producer on the film. One of the scenes I loved is when she yells at him. So she plays a lawyer, but she's kind of semi-retired-ish, she's a mom, and, she doesn't know this guy, she doesn't know if she's comfortable with him being in the house. And Phil, your character, kinda convinces her, and so she just starts giving him, like, the 5th degree, standing in the kitchen, and she was so funny, and she just, like, nails it down, and, like, Adam's face is, like, just, like, plain, so he's playing Charlie and just plain face, like, listening to her, and he's like, "Yes, ma'am. Yes, yes. Uh-huh, uh-huh," and she's, like, scary, but she does it in such a funny way. So, in terms of working with her, I know that you said that she's, like, hilarious. How
Yeah.
is that like for you guys? Because it is primarily for men and her and Jordana. So she's like the woman on the cast, but she holds her own and surpasses in some scenes. I mean, because she's so funny and she's so good.
Her
So
presence
what's that
is,
like working with her?
oh, it was great, because she's, she's such a force. She's so soft and like beautiful, and like, like, my God, like, you can't take your eyes off her.
Mhm.
But she's a tough chick. Like, she does not suffer fools at all. She knows herself. She's very strong. She asks for what she needs. As an actress, she was also a producer on the film, as a human being. We were all friends, and so she can hold her own with anybody, with anybody. And that was kind of our first sort of big comedic scene altogether. And as I remember, God, I want to say we shot that thing at like 1 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
and we were still trying to figure out, the line on the floor. And I was like, oh, quick, somebody give me a roll of tape. So we sort of
Oh
improvised the
my
whole tape
gosh.
bit, like taping the line on the floor and saying, okay, Charlie, this is your half of the house and this is our half of the house. So there was already sort of this air of playfulness that night that we shot this scene. And I think at one point we just said, let's do it as written, but feel free to sort of just play around. Oh, and this is like fuzz coming out. And Jordana did that. She's like, she goes back to the basics. It's like acting is listening and acting is reacting. So like she threw out the line and Adam would give it his funny spin, even if it wasn't as scripted, and she would take that in and respond to that, and we just sort of just have the conversation. And she's great. She's great. She's got fantastic timing. I don't think someone can do, those big budget action movies, which are so tightly choreographed. You have to have a sense of timing for choreography. It's like watching Fred Astaire. It's like Fred Astaire could get like he could do comedy, you know,
Yeah.
right? And she's just like that. She has this wonderful sense of timing and rhythm, and she applied it in every scene. But then she can go dramatic and sweet and wistful, and like those tender moments later between Rosie and Phil. Like she's
Mm.
great. She can do it all.
I know. She was an amazing asset. I was so happy that she was cast in particular because everything that she offers in the film, I think she's a little bit of the beating heart in there. Charlie's a lot of the heart in it as well, but the way that she interacts with everyone. And I think sometimes when you're in those action films, you can get casted as like oh, she's tough or she can't be funny or whatever the case is, and she's so good at it that it almost makes you go like, oh god, is there anything you can't do? Like you're gorgeous, you're funny, you can do
You know
drama,
what?
and
At the end
there's
of the
like
day,
literally nothing she can't do.
she's a woman. She can handle all of it, and she can sort of like puppet master the other four boys in her life. You know what I mean? Like she's a woman. She can do it all.
I want to
Yeah.
ask you quickly that tape scene. So,
Hmm.
because you said it was kind of improvised, I wanted to know, did you guys leave in there the freedom? 'Cause there seemed to be a lot of freedom and space in this film, which I love because a lot of times I feel like there's a lot of rush to like say something to say something or make noise to make noise or whatever the case is. In that scene, I was laughing so hard because all you hear is like the tape ripping and you guys let it roll. I mean, it wasn't like, oh, we're just gonna like cut it and bam, the tape's there, right? Because that's what that a typical movie would show you. So, like for things like that, was it great to have that freedom where you didn't have to talk all the time or you didn't have to do so much? A lot of it was just you guys being, and it made for, I mean, someone putting down tape, nobody's talking, and it's funny. And it's just because you guys are being. You're just, like, living in the moment. So what was that like to have that freedom?
Oh God, it's everything, especially in a comedy. It's you're trying to elicit a physical response, which is really hard to do. Like to me, my two favorite genres of film are horror and comedy because they're the two genres that elicit a physical response.
Mhm.
And you know, the only other thing that sort of really does that for me is music. Music can really like you feel it in your body, and you want to make so you want to dance, it makes you want to cry, it makes you want to sing, whatever. So there's a musicality that's built into comedy. And once you're breaking down scene by scene, it's like, well, what are we trying to achieve in the scene? And then how can we make this scene, you know, reach its goal, but also make you laugh in a way that the last scene didn't, and the next scene won't. It's got to like, what can we do differently? And sometimes it really is it just like it's taking the tiniest little moment, the littlest detail, and making it huge. And sometimes it's taking something so monumental and shrinking it down and like throwing it away. You know what I
Mm.
mean? It's like that, those juxtapositions. So in that moment, we said like how can we play around? What's funny to us? And Javi would say it's like I had the ideas like somebody give me a roll of tape, and one of our gaffers is like I got a roll of tape right here. I'm like I got an idea. I'm like just roll, just roll, just roll. Let's see how this goes. And because we're up against it, we don't have any time. And I was like, don't even point the camera at me, point it at them. And I just like did this thing, and we did it a few times. And it's like, oh yeah, that's it, that's it. It's all about just hearing it and seeing the reactions of my family on one side and Charlie on the other, and you're wondering what the hell is going on. And then to reveal it, it's like, oh my God, it's this silly little moment. But to be able to play like that, that's where the comedy comes from. If you're trying to force it for time, or someone has to say something, or we need something here, those jokes never quite land. They maybe come across as sort of like cute or clever,
Yeah.
but those real belly laughs come from when everyone's sort of like, man, when we're feeling the funny of the moment, that's always what comes through.
Well, also, and that particular scene too, not only was the tape so funny because you're hearing it and it's literally, I mean, like, I'm not talking like 10 seconds. I mean, you're hearing it for like for
I'm
like
milking
5
it.
seconds, like a
Yeah.
minute. Like I mean, it's so funny. But not only that, but one right away when I saw it, if anyone has a sibling, I went, "Oh, I get this." Like, because it's like my side, your side, stay away. And then so like right away I was laughing because of that. And then there's like a 30-second delay, just enough time for you to like, I feel like stop laughing to breathe, to when Charlie then goes, "Is it okay if I like cross it to go to the bathroom?" And then like, and then you're just laughing again, like right away, because it's just, and it's such a cute thing between them too, because they were friends when they were like, younger, and you just picture like this is like just like antics that they've probably done forever. But that freedom and that movement and that space was just so perfect. I mean, you guys just hit it so well. So like literally I like had just stopped laughing, and then he was like, "Is it okay?" And then your reaction is so good as him, and you're like, "Yeah, it's fine. Just use the one downstairs." Like, and then you like run, like you like run out or whatever, and it's just so funny. And it's all that timing, just like you're talking about, those spaces in between, and in particular, like giving that room to breathe, but also the timing from all of you guys in that freedom just made it so good. Another section that I thought was really important and very surprising for me, because I was laughing throughout literally almost this entire movie. I was crying, I was laughing so hard. But this movie has so much heart in it. And from New York in particular, and because it's a New York movie, but I think worldwide, with all of us dealing with COVID, there's a scene where you guys are banging on the pots, and I'm not gonna lie, I got emotional, like, watching that scene. So, obviously, they're running away from COVID. I feel like a lot of COVID movies dealt with it in terms of, like, it existed, but this is what's happening because it existed. So, we're in this place, we're stuck in this house, we're doing this. Your movie, in particular, dealt with it in, yes, we're stuck in this place, but we're not gonna ignore that it's going on. So, you have
Yeah.
scenes where there's mass, again, I don't wanna give away all the like, comedic moments, but there's a scene where someone has to go to the market and there's mass there. It's very well aware that COVID is happening and you guys are living in this moment. So, why did you guys decide to choose, and I'm glad you did, and like I said, I got emotional, and you don't think you're gonna get emotional in a comedy like that, that's this funny, but why did you guys choose to include that, which was such a big deal worldwide when it
Yeah.
was happening?
I think for that exact reason, it's in a lot of ways, COVID is like the other character. Like the house is another character too, and it's hard to sort of describe how until you see the movie, but like the house is so special that it really is this other character. And COVID is the catalyst. Like if it wasn't for COVID, this particular group of people would not have been thrown together. So it just seemed right that you had to sort of honor the reality of that, because that's part of the conflict. It's they're not just stuck together, but it's like, but now that they're stuck together, they still have this major obstacle to
Mhm.
deal with. The obstacle is not just themselves. The obstacle and their clashing personalities and all the personal problems going on. It's all of that, and also dealing with COVID. Now, we didn't want to make it maudlin. We didn't want to get that. This is not like a COVID lockdown movie
Mhm.
by any means, but it only felt right that sort of like, well, in the early days, we were all feeling these stresses. And then our job is sort of like as comedians, it's sort of like, okay, well, how do we talk about those little stressors in a fresh and funny way? And so there's a couple mask moments because it's sort of like, yeah, we saw some ridiculous shit when masks were all brand new. It's
And
sort of like,
it's funny. I mean, it's funny,
yeah,
and
it's
it's good
totally
to laugh about COVID, like, in terms of, because it was so hard, so it was good to laugh about it, and it's funny. But,
yeah.
yeah, to have that scene, I just thought, I was like, "Oh, I wonder why they put that in," and I was so happy you guys did, but I was like, "I wonder why," because it's so difficult, like you were talking about, and I think you guys made such smart decisions, and, like, to have that in there, you're right, it's not like a COVID lockdown movie, and it's not a movie that ignores it. So, like, you guys just peppered it in just right, And that scene in particular, I was just emotional. So was it difficult for you too, like, because you see other people, so was that difficult scene to set up, to have all those people kind of, like, banging pots or, like, doing things like that to honor all of the nurses and, people that were helping at the time?
It's all the other people are all CG.
Really?
Yeah.
They're all fake?
Yeah, because where we shot, first of all, there's no one
This is
out
movie
in
magic.
in the Hamptons in the dead of winter, which is amazing in its own way. It's so quiet and it's beautiful out there. We had some snowy days and all that. And we just didn't have the budget. We literally we didn't have the budget to have extras in those kind of scenes. So we had to sort of drop it all in later. But yeah, those moments, like I remember those moments here. I'm in Los Angeles right now, and those moments of coming out of the house, I'm like, what is that sound? And then finally, you started to realize, oh, this is the one way that we can all connect across these chasms. Like we can't go hang with our neighbors, but we can connect with this one way, and also sort of like pay a little bit of tribute to the people that are on the front lines. And it was it was an emotional time for every person on the planet, and it just seemed right to at least draw a little attention to that kind of moment in the film, because it also perfectly illustrated the turn that our characters go through at that moment, where it's sort of like things are like hearts are starting to open up, connection within this family is starting to happen again at a time when the world was finally saying, like, what, we're gonna be okay.
Right.
We're gonna get through this. We don't know what it's gonna look like, but we're gonna get through this. And that's exactly what's happening in our family in the movie with all the personal shit that's happening. It's like we don't know how we don't know what it's gonna look like on the other side of this, but we know that we have what it takes to get through this together.
I know, and that's what I mean by how it's so hard to not talk overly specific, 'cause I don't wanna ruin it for people. Because literally, I wish I could go back and watch it for the first time again, because it was so it's so good. So that's why I don't wanna talk too many specifics about it, but those few scenes, the tape, the mask thing, which what I'm talking about, people will know when they watch it, the banging of the pots, it was just all put in such a great way. It was so thought out, and for a film that probably had no money, like, whatever budget you guys had, it was amazing, the amount of stuff that you were able to do, and then the movie ends and you feel great. You just feel good about yourself, you feel happy, you laughed, you cried, you feel differently about COVID, family, friends, just everything when you walk out. It's almost like a blur, like, when you walk out of the theater and you're like, "What did I just see? Like, I need to go see that again." And then, like, later you can pick apart, outfits and just funny things that you guys added in and little details. But I mean, literally, you walk out and you're just like, I don't even like, I don't know what happened.
That's the sign of a great movie. It's like, that experience where you lose yourself in the story for 2 hours and you come out feeling refreshed and invigorated, and you know maybe you learn something. I don't know.
So where can people find it? Because I know right now it's kind of like around, but like, where can people go see it? Because I know some people have been seeing it at festivals. I know it just played in Austin.
In Austin, I
So
think we are. I don't want to jinx this, but I think we are in the middle of a distribution deal right now. So hopefully it'll start popping up in major cities. I think the plan is to start to roll it out in like New York, Chicago, Miami, Los Angeles, San Francisco, and then some more cities, sort of like in waves after that. But it's getting a real, the buzz around it has been great. So we're thrilled that this is going to get an actual theatrical release. Everything these days seems to go straight to streaming, which is also great. We just want people to see this film, but it feels like this is the kind of film that we made to, you know, you want to watch it with an audience because the laughs are infectious.
mhm,
And I haven't really been in the theater a whole lot in the last couple of years, like everybody else. I've seen a few here and there,
yeah.
and seeing it, and I'd already seen the movie probably like I don't know a dozen times before we premiered at the Hamptons Film Festival. But seeing it in a room full of people and it was a packed house was
Mhm.
amazing. And people were laughing at things that were like, "Oh my god, I forgot that was funny. I forgot about that
Yeah.
moment." Like I like that moment, but it's like, oh, to see it really with an audience, it changes everything. It changes everything. So we're so thrilled that this is actually going to be in theaters and people are going to have that opportunity.
So where should people look so that we can be updated? So should they check? I know you guys are on Instagram. There's
Yep.
like, Who Invited Charlie Instagram account. Is there anywhere else that they should look so that they can stay updated on festivals, screenings, when there's an announcement?
I would check on the Instagram feed. I think we have a Twitter account as well. I'm posting things to my IG account as updates come up, and hopefully we'll have a big announcement. Hopefully, knock on wood, sooner rather than later about our big release and all those dates. But it's coming soon, and we could not be more proud of this film.
You are in a million things and you're fantastic in all of them, but you just wrapped on Mrs. Maisel, which they're doing their final season. So we're gonna have Gordon for
Gordon
season,
Forrest.
yeah, for the last and final season. Is there anything that you could? I know they're like lock and key over there, but is there anything that you could talk about?
Yeah, basically, it's we get to see. We saw a little bit of Gordon Ford at the end of season 4, and all I can really say is that Midge enters Gordon Ford's world in a much more prominent way, and we get to see the two of them, not necessarily on a collision course, but they have a lot of fun, and it's really fun to watch those characters explore the world of late night television. 1960s late night television, which was just a blast. I had so much fun on this thing, and I can tell you that it does not disappoint. This last season is huge, huge. Each episode is just massive. Like, they really went for it in this last season. Our last day on set, it was, everyone's just kind of looking around at each other, being like, I guess that's it. I guess that's a wrap. And it was amazing. Like, I felt so honored to be able to be involved in the last season of a really iconic show, and everyone is at the top of their game. The audience and the fans of The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel are not going to be disappointed. They're going to love this final season.
You're also doing The Idea of You, right?
Yeah.
So, is there anything that you can talk about? I know that's early, I think, right? Very
Yeah,
early.
they've already started shooting. I think I start shooting on that in a few weeks. It's great. It's really, again, beautiful, fun, romantic comedy, but got a lot of like family aspects to it. It's from Amazon Studios, so I've been kind of in Amazon land for the past couple of years, which has been really fun. But it's Anne Hathaway and myself. I play her ex-husband, who at the very last minute sort of has to like foist our daughter on her, so she ends up having to take her daughter to Coachella, which hipster super cool dad here was supposed to do. And I don't want to give too much away, but some interesting things between mother and daughter and others at Coachella.
A little different than Phil. Maybe similar
Yeah,
aspects, I guess. A little bit. A little
and
similar.
it's funny. Like, the character's name is Dan, so this will be the third Dan between Dan from Veep, Dan from Venom, and now Dan from Idea of You. I keep playing Dan, so I think I have it in my contract someplace that I can only play characters named Dan, or maybe not.
Or maybe it just works. And they're
Yeah, maybe
like,
it works. Maybe
we
I
don't
just
want
feel
to
like
jinx
Dan.
it. They're
Yeah,
like, we don't want to jinx it. We want him we want Reid in. Name him Dan. It will be a hit.
good Dan vibes. Yeah.
Hope you guys enjoyed listening to Reid Scott talk about his latest film, Who Invited Charlie? The film is screening currently in film festivals, so stay tuned to social media so you can find a screening near you. And don't forget to check out Reid Scott in the final season of The Marvelous Miss Maisel, coming to Amazon soon. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you're updated on all of our latest podcasts, and head over to our YouTube channel, hit subscribe so you're updated on all of our video content.